Well, I've probably put 5,000 miles on this bike now in about the last year. I think 11 months. I think this month marks 11 months. Probably put about 5 or 6,000 miles on it. Let me think. No, I've put about 7,000 miles on it. It had like 8,900 miles on it when I got it, and I'm right at 16,000 now. So, right around 7,000 miles. This is a 2015 Harley Davidson Electra Ultra Limited. And it has got the 103 high output twin cooled motor. Now, the 14, 15, and 16 Electra Glide Ultra Limiteds like this are kind of a unique bike, or at least the motor is. Because I think all 14, 15, and 16 103s were what they called high output, which meant they came with a little bit more aggressive cam, a little bit more lift. Not quite as much lift as the Screaming Eagle 255 cam, but still more lift than normal. But the thing with this bike is because it's twin cooled, it has a little bit higher compression. It goes from like 9.7 to 1 compression of the regular high output 103 to 10.1 to 1 compression on this one. And so the effect is pretty close to if this had come with the 255 Screaming Eagle from the factory. It doesn't have that cam, but this kind of mimics that with the more aggressive lift on the cam plus the higher compression. This is really maybe the hottest 103 maybe that was ever made. I'm sure some of you guys could correct me on that. So pretty unique bike actually, and you don't have to worry about some of the growing pains that the Milwaukee 8s are going through right now. This is the tried and true twin cam. By this point, this motor had been made for almost 20 years, at least 15, because the twin cam 88 I think came out sometime in the late 90s, like 99 or 98, somewhere around there. So at the very least, this is probably 15 or 16 years old. The 103 is. So by that point, they'd already figured out the cam chain tensioner problems and stuff like that. But here it is, all shined up. I washed it a little bit earlier today, and it's bright and sunny out here. So let's take a look at it. Now, as this, if you remember, I had an 08 Electra Glide, and it was just a black, regular old Ultra Classic. And I have to say, after having this Ultra Limited, I don't know that I can ever go back to an Ultra Classic. Now, why did I say that? A friend of mine thought that was silly. Well, Ultra Limited comes with a lot of stuff that I just happen to like. Comes with a luggage rack. Of course, you can get that on. You can have that put on whatever. But what I like about the Ultra Limiteds is this has heated grips. This has gloss batwing fairing, which I really like, especially when it's shined up. This is kind of silly, but going down the road, this high gloss black will reflect the green from this tank. Look at the paint, by the way. Anyway, it will reflect the green off of that tank, and it kind of gives this a inky green black look, which I think happens to look really cool. I got this bike used, so stuff like the little covers there with the skulls, that wasn't me, that was somebody that had this before. I was going to swap that stuff out because I'm not normally about skulls, but they look okay. They're not just overdone. And when I got to looking at how much it would cost to just put stock ones back on there, I said, you know what, forget that. So this is a Rushmore bike, which means it's got the vent up here that can close. Harley did away with that in 2020. And I was telling a friend of mine, that kind of makes these 14, 15, and 16 Ultra Limiteds a pretty good bike to get, because it still has all the old Rushmore features that they cut out in 2020. Like, this has the heel toe shifter, this has the closable vent, comes with 2 key fobs, stuff that they don't do anymore. And as I said, this was kind of the more reliable engine. But I really like the gauges. Compared to my old one, my old Ultra Classic, these gauges are so much nicer. The old ones were kind of backlit, like just an old classic car with just halogen bulbs behind. These are like LED backlit. They look really nice. Also, this has the touchscreen and navigation, which my old bike most definitely did not have. Stevie Nicks. So, let me turn that down a little bit. So this has a lot nicer stuff than what my old one had. The seat is more comfortable on this, from what I understand. For Rushmore, they redid the seats on them. What I really like about the Rushmore bikes is this one touch for these. That's my rain gear in there, and cold weather gear. But if you don't know about these side cases on the old ones, like prior to 14, you had to flip this thing. This flipped up. You push the lid forward off a hook, then pulled it up. And to close it, you had to push it forward again, put it on that hook, smash down, and then push that in. It was kind of I mean, it wasn't like hard, but this is just so much easier. Just a little latch, and that's it. And I can get into that while I'm going down the road. You can put water in there, or anything you want to get at while you're going down the road. Let's see. Got these integrated lights on the back here. These are brake lights, blinkers, and everything integrated. And you got lights down here too. Really good looking rears on these things. Oh, cheap sunglasses. But I think this is a much nicer bike than my old Electric Glide Ultra Classic was. Just a lot of little things add up to make it nicer. Of course, everything works on this one. On my black one, the radio would kind of quit working, the horn quit working. But I like that it's liquid cooled. Of course, your radiators are in here. Got a little fan. I don't know if you can see in there. There's a little, looks like a little PC fan in there. But the one drawback to these motors is the water pump, which is right down in there on the bottom, tends to go out on these things. So for $350, you can get a Milwaukee 8 water pump and put on here, and it's just fine. But what I have found is the water pump that's on this thing, typically the reason they fail is there's a contact in there that goes bad. And I've seen a lot of people just take the cover off the water pump, get some solder, and solder that connection back together, and it works just fine again. And that doesn't cost you any money, so that's probably what I'm going to do at some point whenever it happens to me. Daymaker headlights and fog lights, that's nice. The front fender on this bike looks a lot more streamlined as opposed to my old Ultra Classic. This doesn't have the big rubber bumper that hangs down in the front like the old ones did. They really just did a lot of streamlining on these bikes. Makes them look a lot nicer. You've got crash bars, but you don't have the big gaudy looking cages that come around the sides of the side cases. The rear box has been stretched out that way, and it looks like that would make it smaller, but this is actually a bigger case than the old ones. They just streamline it to make it look better, and it absolutely does. Looks a lot better. When I see the old bikes, I just think that top case, it just looks like just a big old cardboard box on the back of the bike, like a milk carton or something. These look just a lot better. This one has highway bars. This one has quite a bit of upgrades to it that whoever the previous owner was did to it, and they're all Harley. As far as I can tell, they're all Harley parts. The highway pegs there, but this has some aftermarket levers, shift linkage, and then if you can see right there, this has the tail lights that fill in the gaps in between here. That's like a $300 light kit from Harley. It's got RCX exhaust on it. Let's see, let's go ahead and start it up. It sounds pretty good, I think. I've had this bike on a couple trips. We took it to Tail of the Dragon last year. And we took it down to Austin about a month ago. Now this has EITMS, which is your where it shuts off the rear cylinder, and I don't know what all it does. It does a bunch of stuff, but it mainly just shuts off the rear cylinder to keep the engine cooler and to keep heat off your legs. And right here it says enabled, but now when it actually shuts off the cylinder, it'll say activated or active. It won't say enabled. And if you have your EITMS turned off, it'll say disabled. But yeah, we went to Tail of the Dragon, had a good time on it. We went down to Austin, had a good time on it. Did the part of the Twisted Sisters run down there. And the bike does good. The bike does well. Harley's website says that the longer you ride these, the better they feel. And that is absolutely true. If I'm just commuting on this bike, I don't like it just because it's so big and heavy and cumbersome. I mean, you do get used to it, but there's never going to be a replacement for how heavy it is. You're never going to just get over it completely. But the longer the trip is, the better this thing feels. If you're doing multiple or like 200, 300, 400, 500 mile rides, this thing will all of a sudden begin to pay for itself. We also, this is the bike me and Tony took to Fort Worth earlier this year, back in February, before all the pandemic crap hit. Rode this in 31 degrees weather, did just fine. It's got these wings down here you can close off when it gets cold, or you can open them up and you can angle it towards you, it'll shoot air towards you in the summer. So it's 91 degrees and the EITMS still hasn't come on. Of course, the bike is still warming up. But I would say as of right now, I like the bike. It's been pretty reliable, and of course it should be. It's still pretty new. I do worry about the water pump, but it'll be alright. Like I said, I found an easy fix for it. But man, just look at the paint. The paint is the reason I bought this bike. Paint's just amazing on this. I love the color. I think it's deep jade pearl. There is one thing I wish this thing had, and that's an adjustable windshield. The height on this one, as I'm going down the road, is pretty much just in the middle. I could actually stand to have a taller windshield by an inch, maybe even 2. So this is just kind of an in-between. It'd be nice to have a windshield that could go up for more protection or down for a little less. Here in the summer it gets extremely hot, and a windshield like this that's in the middle, I wish I could change it to one that's adjustable, but I don't think I can. I can, however, swap out the windshield, which I wouldn't mind doing, but I don't see myself doing it anytime soon. It's not that big a deal. Couple things that I've remembered after I took off. There's a couple things about the bike that I like, or one thing anyway. This has linked brakes. Doesn't have the RDRS like the newer Harleys, but it does have linked brakes front and rear, which I like. It also has ABS, which I like. Something I really don't like is that kickstand right there. If you notice just a second ago when I put it down, the bike still wanted to roll forward quite a bit. That's absolutely frightening and nightmarish every time it happens. And there's also a lot of times where you put the kickstand down, put the bike down, and the bike does not roll forward. And you think, okay, cool. Well, then you start putting gas in it or whatever, which I'm about to do. And then all of a sudden the bike does roll forward and you weren't thinking, or you weren't ready for it. It scares the shit out of you. So I hate that kickstand. I know that Lemmy from Revzilla loves them. He's probably the only one. I don't like them at all. Another thing I don't really care for is this gas, or the nozzle input, the intake for the gas here. I don't know why. I just don't like it. It seems like no matter what I do, I always get some kind of gas on the bike somehow. Here's another thing I really like about this bike, and it's the ability to charge anything and everything you could ever want. First off, there's a ton of storage in here. I've got all kinds of charging cables in here. Got my registration and manual in here, GoPro stuff, fuel bottle, which, by the way, I need to fill that up. But right here, you got a charger, or a spot to put a charger. It's very nice. I like that. And then you've got another one right there. And so that's two. Right here you've got a data port for your phone. Now that won't charge very well, but it'll, if your phone's hooked up to that, it'll at least keep it from running it down very much anyway. It will get a little charge from that. So that's like 3 chargers right there. But also I've got two, well, because reasons, I actually have 2 battery tender quick connects down there. And I've got some battery tender USB chargers that can hook up to them. So I literally have like, what is that, 5 USB chargers on this bike. So when we did tour of the Smokies, which was our Tail of the Dragon trip, I had the GoPro, which is right here. I had it charging, I had my phone charging, and my Senna charging all at once on this thing while we were riding. It was very nice. So I'm gonna fill this up, fill the tank up, and we'll get back on the road again. One thing you can do about the gas is just put your hand over it, which seems to work pretty good. Got my bottle filled up. Getting some of that gasoline. That's a slow pump. But anyway, this seems to work pretty good. By the way, this thing takes 93 octane or 91, whatever. I like 93 just because that's about as high as you can get. But it takes a higher octane. I have heard that's because to help keep the engine cooler, but who knows. I'm sure there's some other reasons too. So we found a little somebody here on the road. Just gonna kind of scoot him over. This ain't the nicest way to do it, but I don't know if that's a snapping turtle or not. Or is that just a big red air slider? I can't tell what that little guy is. He might just be a red air slider. Hello there. Hello everybody. Look at his claws. Look at those claws. Yeah. I'm just gonna scoot him here out of the way. There you go. You need to get back in the water. That's some moss growing on him. So all in all, guys, I kind of think if you're wanting to get a used touring bike from Harley, I kind of think you should take a look at these. 14, 15, and 16 Electra Glide, ultra limited. Ton of storage, a good motor with a lot of power, heated grip, navigation, Bluetooth, six gallon tank, 6-speed transmission. It's got a lot of goodies on it. It's got a lot of stuff that they don't even have anymore. Like I said, the heel toe shifter, closing vent up here. It's a pretty good ride. Y'all take care, and we're gonna see you in the next one, all right? Bye.